I think we can start now. Um, Hello, everyone. I hope you all safe and well. My name is Elçin Süleymanzadeh. I am ASOIU student chapter board member, and today I am going to be moderator of this session. Our honorable guest today is Mahammad Valiyev, who is graduate from Baku Higher Oil School with bachelor and master degrees, and currently a Ph.D. student in Petroleum Engineering at Southern California. Our today's topic is learning how to learn, promising to be very interesting and actual topic. I believe really that students who listen carefully will find something that could be applied during their academic life. And also I want to add, please don't be shy. If you have any questions, you can open your microphones and ask your questions. So that's all from my side. Mehmet, you can start.
Thanks, Elçin, for an intro. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for hosting my talk. And I really hope the session so it will be helpful, and the students will find something insightful, and they will apply the knowledge that they have gained in the session. So he already made an introduction about me. I will make another one, a very short one. So my name is Mahammad Valiyev, and as you see, so from the slides, the talk is about so learning how to learn, and I think it's very important to just look to pay attention to this kind of topic and think about your learning and to optimize it. And let's start the presentation. So I will start with an introduction and the importance of topic. So why you should spend our time on this talk and topic. Then the second part of our presentation will be about the steps that I think are important for effective so learning. Then third part, I will just share some of the methods and techniques which are helpful that will can make you optimize the process of learning. In the fourth part, I will just as I've taken so learning. I know that ML and data science is nowadays is very important, and many of the students are interested in topic. So just I will use it as an example to show the so to put this theory into practice. That I will explain the stuff in the second and third part. In the fourth part, just I will just show all the theory by an example. And in the last part, I will share some of the resources you can so you can use to explore some more. And if you have any questions, so you can ask all the questions you have. So during the talk, you can stop me at any time, or just if all the questions you have are general, not about the slides I'm showing, so you can ask at the end. So just about me, they already made an introduction, but just I will make another very short one. So I did my undergrad and masters at Baku Higher Oil School, but it was a joint program between our university and Hürriyet University, and nowadays I'm a PhD student at the USC in the United States. I did some internships in SOCAR, Schlumberger, and BP, and my involvement in SPE was through the Young Talents. I was part of Young Talents for 2 years. I finished it successfully. I was attendee at the student symposium in 2017, and I was at the finals of Petroleum in Canada in 2019 as part of our university. So let's start the talk. Let's start with an introduction. So in this section, just, I won't ask anyone just to introduce everyone, just make an introduction about herself or himself, but just I will ask some set of questions, and I will be happy if the people so will help me. In this way, I will so get to know some of you, and I will also get some of the answers to some of the questions so that they have. So the first question I want to ask, so what are you learning now? I'm more interested in the stuff, so which is outside of scope of your university stuff, like something you do by yourself, like something you learn extra on top of your studies. So just I want to ask, maybe there is someone who wants to answer the question. So is there anything you're learning now?
Actually, I can start with this.
Go ahead, Elçin.
Yeah, I'm still learning English. I'm still trying to prepare for my IELTS exam, and in additional, I like still worked on my calculus, but I have stopped.
I see. Okay. I mean, it's something IELTS. It's not so part of university. It's good that you do something extra. So Ceyhun said social media marketing strategies. Okay. It's okay, like if you write in chat, but honestly it will be like more effective if you just unmute yourself and talk, so that everybody pays attention and hears your voice. It will be more interactive. So the next question I want to ask, how effectively you think are you learning? So maybe Elçin, you can just add more, like how effectively you think you're spending your time on preparing for IELTS. So do you think your learning strategy is effective?
I'm not sure about this. Really not sure. Like I'm doing something, but I feel still that it is not enough.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. I guess Mehdi has raised his hand. So yeah, Mehdi.
Hi
We can hear
everyone.
you.
First of all, I want to give the answer to the first question. What I'm learning now? I'm learning Dutch language, also improvement of English level and Python programming. But the second question is how effectively, not the best one, but would be better. But I guess with my discipline, I can learn anything I want.
I see. So in what way, so you think, so you can improve your learning? So what, for example, you know that like if you will do that, it will make your learning more effective. But for some of the reasons you can't also do that.
Yeah.
Is there any such thing?
Yeah. Actually, it depends on the personal characterization. You should have the discipline. You should have enough time, and you should have enough energy. But if you have not the discipline, you are the not planned person. You can improve yourself, but not good enough, I guess. You should have the discipline for this.
Okay, understood. I think overall, I do agree with your opinion. So we have some answers in the chat. So Mahir says, so the time management is important. I mean, yeah, so that's very important point. And Ilham says, I think the best one is, so it's Pomodoro first to do the hard one. Yeah, it also makes sense. I will add some points in the slide on this, yeah. Right, thanks for being interactive. Thanks for helping me, I have some next questions. What effective learning strategies have you developed so far? So is there something like, in the past when you were doing something wrong and after some time you have realized that, just maybe I should do something in different way, and, just after that you implemented that and you see that, it works. So is there anything like, you learned from your experience, like some effective learning strategy? Maybe just, just you have realized that you always were studying in the morning, but, at some time you just have tried to study in the night when everybody sleeps, and you see like, so in the night you don't see much activity on the social media, and for some reasons you're more effective at the night. Like, it's just one example. Maybe you've found like some other examples that, made your learning more effective.
Just wanted to add on that. Ceyhun speaking.
Okay. Yeah, Ceyhun.
Yeah. So during my university time, so I graduated many years ago, but during my university times when I was doing my drawing lessons, and I found it very destructive at that time to do it when everyone awake. And as you mentioned, I shifted my exercise time when everyone was in the bed, like after 10 p.m. I guess, and I found it very, very useful. And yeah, it's I think you should be experimental in that way when you try to learn something. Like if it's not like going the way that you want, you may again like shift some patterns or some stuff. For example, in this social media marketing stuff, so also trying to there's certain hours that you need to post and etc. So I appreciate that, and sometimes you don't have time. So for that, because of the family and other issues, other work, then yeah, it's just like experimenting, but maybe delegating it to other people and asking for some help. Yeah, I mean, experimenting and trying to achieve. But yeah, if there's some better strategies, I hope the reason why I joined actually to learn. Like I never been thinking like that seriously about this, but yeah, maybe I will find the answers after this session. Thank you.
Hopefully I will help you, in some ways. But yeah, I really like that you've mentioned this experimentation, because I have this experimentation in my slides. So I emphasize the importance of experimenting. So because just you can't just so take some of the strategies from the web and just imply it, because some of the strategies are not for everyone. So experimentation is very important, and it's very good that you have mentioned. So Javid is raised his hand, so maybe we can listen to him.
Yes. My experience is about learning English. In a few years ago, everybody told me that you can learn English with watching movies or series, but nobody told me that how many times you have to spend in a series in a day. For that reason, the first day I watched only 2 hours the movies. Then I didn't see some impact on my improvement. For that reason, day by day, I increased the hours spending a movie. And in summer, the whole summer, I watched the movies during the 12 hours, certain hours, maybe a lot. With this experience, I improved my English, so that this year, my motivation letters for some schools, maybe major schools, training schools, is not well. And day by day, I improved my motivation letters, my series. And I think experience day by day is a very important factor for improving yourself for something.
I see. I think, yeah, and you also have mentioned very good point. You did something so for some time, and it was something which was advised by some of the people, but you have realized that you just have some of the questions, and you've thought like the way you do it wasn't that efficient, and you've thought about it, and you've made some change, and then you have seen the outcome. So it's also like a good initiation and a good point. So I also mentioned so this kind of attitude in the talk. So thanks for your opinion. I think we have some answers in the chat, and I will read them, and I will pass to the next questions, because yeah, we need to go forward. So Mahammad says, yeah, so the planning, yeah, is very important, and finding the priorities. Yeah, that's our valid points. So Rasul says we should so list of works from ones which take little time to the ones which take more time. Yes, it also makes sense. Writing things in my journal and ticking them as I reach my goals. So at the end of the day, I can see how much productive could be. Yeah, I always have this. So thanks for this point as well. I always have this. I have this Excel spreadsheet, and I write all the tasks that I have to do, like for the week and for the day, and yeah, and just after I do it, I cross it. So it's also a very effective strategy. Get rid of things. So distracting your attention. Yeah, I mean, it's something we all of us should do, but we don't do it always, unfortunately. The next set of questions. Yeah. So what would you like to learn in near future, and why? And how do you plan learning that thing? It's a final set of the questions. Maybe I will have just answers from as 2 people, so maximum, because we should go forward, I think, a little bit behind. So yeah, just anything you would like to learn in near future, and just, you know, maybe see you have already some ideas why you want to learn it and how you're going to approach it. And with that, you know, we will just, I will start, you know, explaining stuff, because I know you want to hear from me. So you came to hear from me, not to just answer all the questions as by yourself. But just, it's the last set of the questions.
I don't think if you can consider this as learning or developing, but I'm already learning French language. I'm planning to take DELF exam. This is a French language proficiency test exam. And I think I will be subscribed to a course, because studying at home by myself isn't that productive, I guess.
Okay. And why you're learning French?
Because I want to have my master's degree in France.
Okay, yeah, it's so it's a valid reason. Then we have some answers in the chat. Jayhun says, yeah, so negotiation skills, yeah, they're also very important, and probably we know why. I wouldn't ask why. Read more quickly and effectively for saving time. Yeah, it's also something I did in the past, because yeah, it's also very important. And yeah, again, I don't ask why, because it's obvious. And you said, yeah, it's effective for saving time. Okay, I think so we can start the session. Like, we can start. So my part. Thanks for your answers. I really appreciate. You know, I had some of the sessions earlier, and you know, when audience just, you know, they just only kind of so listens, they don't interact. It's sometimes hard for the speaker, you know, because it's an online session and you don't see the faces. Okay, I guess someone just forgot to mute the chat. Okay, so I was saying, you know, when you have online session, you don't see the faces of the people, and it's very, you know, hard to see, so whether they are like interested, or where you can make your point, or just, you know, it's boring session, you're not doing it right. So that's why from time to time, just, you know, just write something in the chat, so that, you know, I know that you're following. If there is something I don't understand, I don't explain well, so you can always also write a message. Anyway, so let's start the session. So why so learning effectively is important, and why it's needed now. So the first reason is that, as you probably heard, you know, more of the nations, more of the countries are moving to knowledge-based economy. And by knowledge-based economy, I mean that, you know, in the past there was emphasis on agriculture. Most of the countries were having all their income from agriculture. But after industrial, you know, there was like around 18th century, there was the steam engine invention and all that. There was a shift to making something physical, you know, the cars and all that. So there was a shift from agriculture to production. And now we have this change to the services industry, you know, like if you see like one of the like advanced nations and countries, like most of their income are coming from the services. For example, like take US, they have this Silicon Valley or Wall Street, you know, they don't make anything physical usually. They produce, for example, Facebook or Google, you know, they just, most of their activities based on the knowledge, information, on something which is not, which is intangible, not physical. And the jobs we have in this age are you know, like some of the best jobs we have are which they do by academics, engineers, lawyers, and they don't make anything physical. So they are called like thinkers for a living. So they just advise or just think and provide some answers, and in this way they're earning their money, you know. Then the second reason is that the job market we have now is not stable. As you know, so there is in like each company, so you probably heard, for example, BP, SOCAR, you know, each company announces they are doing some automation, optimization, and they are trying to improve all the processes, so they have, you know, just to change the way they do things. And then there was the ongoing this, you know, this so COVID-19. So it's COVID-19, but we are already in 2021, but we still have this, you know, and we don't know when it will stop. So it is still an ongoing issue. Then we have this, you know, like everything is moving online, and you know, just a few years back, there wasn't so many pages on Instagram, for example, and now you see, like, you know, every, like, even small shop in Azerbaijan has this Instagram page, and they're using this, have some of the online tools. So there is an increased emphasis on the online sales and on the marketing. And yeah, and just I included, there is a fact from NBC News. So they say almost like half of the jobs are gone after pandemic. If you see, so they say out of 22 million jobs, only kind of just, you know, half of it so far has been recovered. It means, you know, just half of the jobs are gone, and probably so we won't have those anymore. And probably some of your friends, or just some of the people, you know, some of them are unfortunately are laid off because of COVID, and for some of them, they won't be able to find the same jobs. Some of the people are learning new skills, new kind of stuff to adapt to this kind of changing job market. So these two kind of reasons, in my opinion, are some of the reasons which affect this as a market, and they emphasize this increased need in people who can learn fast and independently. So if you just see, like, some of the posts on LinkedIn for jobs, or on some other websites, you can always see, you know, there is some mention, you know, we look for people who can learn independently and in a fast and effective fashion. And there is a fact, you know, like 70% of the coders are self-taught. It means they learn by doing. So just open the websites, they take some courses, and they learn everything. They don't just go to the university again. They don't ask for some help. They just go and learn. And there is a rapid growth in the number of online sub-degrees and courses. For example, if you visited the LinkedIn, you probably, all of you have seen some of the, like, of your friends sharing their certificates, you know, like, for example, I finished this, like, course, or on LinkedIn, on Coursera, edX, and so on. So, you know, like, people are spending more of their time on taking these online courses and improving their skills. Like, there is a reduced emphasis on classrooms, on learning at the university, because they're not as effective, and they are so expensive. So just using edX or Coursera or Udacity now is more effective, and it's cheap. So at this point, I think, like, you've had some intuitions that why learning effectively and independently is so important. So I want to pass to the second part of the presentation, which is workflow for effective learning, which just I've thought about. So in this slide, I will just make a brief, big picture view of the workflow, but I have a separate slide for each of the steps. So the first step, I think, in learning, some of the people are missing it, but I think the one of the most important and first things to do when you learn new stuff is to understand why you're learning. So you should have very, like, obvious and clear kind of reasons why you're learning that thing, you know. I think it's where you should start. So then the second thing, after, you know, like, you will learn something and you know the reason why you learn, the second thing is to just explore the space, you know, just understand so what kind of tools, books or courses or blogs you can use to learn that. So maybe you can ask from some of the people can help you. It's the second thing. You should understand so what kind of resources you're going to use for learning that thing. Then the third thing is planning. After you know what you're learning, what you are going to learn, you have the resources. You don't need to sit and plan, like, how you're going to learn. So how much time you will spend, how much time in general, and how much time you will spend each week on what days, so which kind of resources you're going to use, and etc. So obviously you have everything, you have the plan, I mean, everybody has a plan. You know, if you ask someone, everybody has some plan, but not everybody executing it. You should just execute on that agenda. You should just follow that plan. And the final part, again, some of the people are missing it, but I think it's very important. After you do this thing, after, for example, you go and take this IELTS, just you shouldn't forget about it. You take, for example, you were aiming like to get 7.0, you got just 7.0. Just you have achieved your aim. But I think after that point, you should spend some time to reflect what you did right and what you did wrong. It's not because you may take IELTS again, but you may also take, I don't know, like another exam. And I think in the process of like preparation for IELTS, you probably done something wrong and right. And I think there is a lesson to be learned from that experience. Yeah, so let's just go through each step in detail. So as I said, so the first step is just setting your goals. I think you should have very clear idea and vision about why do you want to learn that thing. Because if this stuff is missing, I've seen some examples. For example, some of the people are just seeing some of their friends are learning Spanish, and they just go and learn Spanish for a month or two. After some time, I'm asking, okay, just how is it going? And they're saying, okay, just I have dropped it. And I'm asking, okay, I mean, so what was, so why have you dropped it? And they were saying, I mean, it wasn't interesting, or I don't know, it was hard to learn. So it just, I sense that it wasn't very important thing in the first place. And it's just was maybe just more useful for them to just first understand how hard it's going to be and what is the purpose of learning, so that they don't stop at the mid-time, you know, just at some point. And the goals should be like SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. They should be very specific. Like, for example, learning Spanish in just, for example, next 6 months by doing this, and that. So having specifically SMART goals is very important. And I think so one of the steps which helps in goal setting and just having this energy and passion for learning is visualizing the success. For example, when I was applying to the Ph.D. programs in the US, there was like many obstacles. I was encountering many obstacles, and sometimes it was just, you know, hard to get through. It was like I knew that some of the people just have full stop at some point, but you know, at this point you should think about, I mean, why you started at the first place. You should, for example, I was like visualizing, okay, if I do this, if it's going to be successful, I will have this, like this, and this, and it will be very exciting for me. You know, that visualization of success was a very important step for me, just to go through all the obstacles. So that's why I included this point. And I think along the way, you know, some goals might slightly change. For example, you can just aim like for some of the top universities. Maybe, you know, you get to not like the best ones, or maybe just, for example, you aimed for IELTS 7.5, you got 7, or just, you know, like sometimes, you know, something also, there is something out of your influence and control, and you shouldn't be like, you know, I've seen some people like overthinking it. They're just too stubborn on their goals and not that flexible. So you shouldn't be like too flexible, but you should still have some flexibility and not to be like very, you know, like focused on your goal without any flexibility. Yeah. Then the second thing, as I've told, it's review of the resources. And I think it's also a very important step. Some of the guys I know, like, you know, they're going to some of the courses, like for IELTS, for learning some stuff, let's say it's another exam, or maybe it's, you know, it's just learning to code, for example, or something else, and they don't do review of the resources. They just go and have a trust to the courses. They go and they just think they just did their job, and I hope that they will kind of teach me everything. But I think at this stage you should also do your review, so just to understand what they are offering. Maybe their way of teaching is not very effective. Maybe they don't cover everything you need, you know. And I think you should also have some understanding what you are learning, so that you know so what you are paying for, you know. You should know that. So I think it's very important for you also to understand so what kind of the resources are available to you. Maybe just you can avoid all the courses. Maybe there are some of the more effective options and choices. For example, when I took a GRE exam, I was also planning to going a course, but like to hire someone and just he or she just helped me. But I did some review and just I've read some of the posts on the web, and I saw like, you know, like most of the people in the US, they were just have reading some books and just taking some practice exams, and they were scoring high, you know. And I thought, you know, I just can, so I can do the same, because I was studying at the university so by myself. I already did some like independent learning skills, and I saw, you know, I don't need to spend like 200 or manats just to, you know, pay for GRE exam, because it's already was expensive. So just, you know, I followed their advice and I did, and it was, I got a good outcome. So I think it's also important. You have to review some of the resources. Even if you go to if you get some help, it still will be so useful for you. And it's very important to get a big picture view of the process. Just, you know, for example, you're learning to program in Python. It's very good to know just what other languages are available. For example, there is C++ or Java. And in Python, you should maybe just have some understanding what is the scope of Python. What can you do with Python, you know? So rather than just go and, you know, and start with if then else, you know, for while loops and so on, because you should first understand what is possible so to do in Python. So that when you do it later, you know that, okay, you've learned like maybe 5% of Python, you know, you should have this understanding. Then it's very important to talk to experts and experienced people, because they already have gone through, you know, this path, and they already maybe like have done some of the mistakes which maybe you will do. But by sharing, you know, by this asking some of the questions you have and brainstorming, it's very useful. You can avoid some of the mistakes so the people have done already. For example, when some of the students ask me about the application process for the US universities, I already, for example, say, you know, like I did these mistakes, you know, so you'd better like avoid those mistakes. But if I had someone like to help me in the meet, you know, while I was applying, I could avoid those. So it's very important to find some experienced people and ask for their help. There's a message in chat, so I'm just saying in case you have questions. Yeah, you can ask here. I'm seeing it, you know, chat. So yeah, and if you can't find all the people you need, you can always search on the web. You know, like after some point, I've realized there is like so much information on the web, especially for the things which are like international, like, you know, learning, so coding, learning English, IELTS, TOEFL, because it's not just about Azerbaijan. You know, all the world is doing it, and there is a good chance that you can find very useful posts and blog posts about the reflections and experiences of the people. And there are very nice people on the web. They're sharing their experience. They're writing very long posts, and they explain everything in detail. Yeah, and after you review all the resources, you should just focus all of your efforts on few of the resources, because you will find, like, you know, there are hundreds of books for IELTS. You can't just read all of them. You just find like the best, you know, few books and focus all your efforts on those. And you shouldn't do very exhaustive search, you know, spend too much time, because I've seen some guys, they go and ask like, I don't know, like, so 10 or 15 people about their experiences, and it's, of course, all the experiences of the people are different, and they just, you know, then after some point they're just stuck, and they don't know what to do. So some of the guys are stuck at this step because they get so much information, so they don't know what to do. And that's why you should spend just enough time so that you have some idea, and immediately you should start doing something. You shouldn't just waste so much time on this step. Then the third step is planning. So, okay, you know all the resources, you have settled on a few resources, you know that you're going to use those books and those kind of courses. Then you should estimate the required time, because I see some people just start something and then they realize, okay, I misunderstood it. Now I need 6 months for that. You know, you should ask this, you know, even before you starting, you should have like very good idea how much time it will take based on your skills, based on your time, and based on your outcome you want to achieve. And as I mentioned, for the best outcome, you should spend your time evenly. It means just instead of like doing very intensive, like a week study or like month study, it's better for you, you know, just to spread out it and spend, you know, some time each day or maybe each week, because in this way it's more effective. You can learn more effectively. And you should have a concrete agenda for each week, month, a quarter, and year, because in this way you can follow the progress you make. And again, some slight changes, modifications, so to plans are acceptable, as long as they're not very extreme kind of changes. And then, as I mentioned, you should execute the plan, because it's always nice to have some plan. I have many plans, you know, just thousands of plans, but maybe I do just, you know, like a few of them, because you don't always do all the plans. You always plan, but you don't do. So just, you know, at this step, I don't have so much to say. It's just you should go and do it. And the last step are the results, you know, and their analysis. So make sure you have a concrete outcome, you know. For example, for IELTS, it's very nice because you go and take the IELTS. It's very obvious. But for some other goals, for example, learning to code, you can just spend a month or you can spend a year. And if you don't have a specific goal, a specific outcome, you can spend some like infinite amount of time, and you won't know whether you're achieved something or not, you know. But if you say, for example, I want to, like, at the end of this 3 months, I want to have this app, which is coded in Python, it will be very specific, and you will know whether you made your progress, you achieved your goal or not. It can be a degree if you're studying at university, it can be a report, it can be a presentation. You should have something, you know, some very obvious outcomes that you expect to achieve at the end of your learning. And try always to share, to present your results to experienced people, because it's always hard to judge whether your outcome and the results you gained are acceptable, are of high quality. Yes, so it's better to just get as much feedback as possible, because it takes, you know, you think in one way, other people think in different way, and there is a good chance that some other people will see some of the points which you haven't seen. And it's always a very good idea to summarize the learning process and reflect on what went right and wrong. I already have mentioned that, because it will be useful for your next learning experiences. And you should also incorporate the outcomes of your reflection for the next learning projects. Yeah. So we are done with the workflow. At this step, I can see the chat, and days after some days, we should report ourselves. Yeah. I was saying actually, so the same. So you should have these goals, and after end of each period, you should see so how much of the progress you are making. Whether maybe you just overestimated your skills, or maybe you underestimated your skills. Maybe you need some more help, you need some more time. So rather than waiting until the end of the learning, you should do it. You should incorporate the changes immediately. At this step, if you have any questions about the workflow, you can ask now, or you can ask at the end as well, because I'm passing this third part of presentation. No questions. Here I will talk about some of the, so in the second part, I just put out very general workflow for learning almost anything. In this part, I will outline some of the techniques, specific techniques for making your learning more effective. So the first thing is hierarchical. So learning, also Elon Musk was saying a concept of semantic kind of a tree. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard about it. So it's things that you should first focus on the big picture and fundamentals, and then add all details. It means you can imagine a tree. You can imagine a tree, for example. You can see this hierarchy. For example, you should focus on the, so at the top, you always have the most important thing. At the bottom, you have the not so important things, but they are also important in some ways. So for example, if you are learning, say, I think like everybody, most of the students are petroleum engineers. So maybe you're learning reservoir simulation or reservoir engineering. So rather than spending your time on derivation of the equations for reservoir simulation, you can first just start and learn, what is reservoir simulation about, what is the workflow for reservoir simulation. For example, you have to get all the inputs, you have to prepare inputs. For example, you have to have your simulator, you have to first, so you have to define the goal of the simulation. Then you have to choose your simulator. There is a black hole simulator, a compositional simulator. You should have a big picture view of the process. Then you should focus on some part of it and learn more about it. Because if you don't have this, it will be very hard for you to learn and retain that knowledge. So it's important to focus on the most important stuff first, so that after have this top of tree, after you have a big kind of chunk of the tree, then you can stick your all the leaves. You should have this big kind of a trunk, so that after that you can stick all the leaves. If you don't have this, like even so, when you see when we have the building of the house, we focus our attention on the on the biggest parts. Then we fill in all the rooms, like we just fill in the walls and etc. But in the beginning we just do the the main, I don't know how it's said in English. We do all the frames, like the shape and all that, and then we adding the specifics as we go. It's same with learning. Yeah. So I think it's very important that I've been doing it after maybe in the last year or two, and I see its benefit. Because in the past I was just starting, for example, learning some subject for the exam, and I was just starting with the first topic, finishing it until the end, and making sure I understand every single thing in topic. Then I was going to the second topic. But then after some time I was seeing I just spent almost half of my time on the first topic, and I just have a few weeks for the next topics. But it's very good idea just to skim through the all topics first. You have some understanding of what the subject is about, have some idea about each topic, and then you go through in detail each topic. And in this way, if you don't have enough time, you already have some understanding. Maybe you can go and just score C and B, so just having some understanding. But if you focus on making a perfect thing from the beginning, it will take a lot of time and probably it won't be efficient. Yeah, which percentage of the total time do you spend on each part of the workflow? It's a good question, I think. Okay, we can go to that slide very fast. I think it depends. It depends. I think I wouldn't be able to tell the exact numbers. It depends also on the goals. I think the most part ideally, should be spent on the execution, more than half of them, maybe 60% of your time should be spent on execution. So maybe in this step, usually it's fast for me, the first step, because I already know why I'm learning this stuff. It's usually maybe 5% or something. I don't spend so much time on this step, because it doesn't mean I don't pay enough attention. It's just I usually have very good idea why I'm learning, and I know it. Just I don't need to go and ask for some people, okay, why studying Ph.D. is important, why learning is important, because I already when I start something, I already have some idea. But it may be different for other people. So maybe 5%. For review of the resources, I spend much more time than for the first step. Maybe it's 10 or 15%. So I think in my case, I usually spend more than required time. I slightly overthink this step, I think. Then on planning, yeah, I maybe just a bit less than on review of the resource. Maybe it's 10%, 10, okay, 15 and 5% in total, maybe 30. So then like at least 50 on execution, and on the results again, maybe like so 10% on the results. Yeah. So main part again, like you should be focusing on main efforts on the execution, because you always plan, you can always review the resources, you can think about the goals and motivation. And if you don't have anything to do, if you haven't done anything, you can't share your results. So the main part should be like focused, should be on execution. But yeah, and suggest enough time on the first 3 steps and on the results. And Ilham says we cannot eat a big elephant, we can eat it by dividing. Yeah, it's also something I've read, you know. Yeah, you're right. So I guess I was, yeah, hierarchical learning. I hope I have a good pace. Like if I'm stopping on the slides for too long, just write in the chat so that I just go on faster a little bit. Or if you wanted me to expand, I can always expand. Then the second thing is learning by doing and learning on demand. You know, in a traditional university setting, so how it's done. For example, you're learning this some math, for example. They just are trying to explain everything, you know, like every just small thing, every kind of detail. And we always have this, some of the questions asked. Some of the students ask, okay, why we need this thing? So, for example, they are teaching this how to multiply all the matrices, like how to find eigenvalues, eigenvectors of the matrices. And the people are wondering, the students, okay, why we need this, you know? They're not, and usually when the students, they don't know why they're learning this stuff, they're not very interested in it. And that's why it becomes not very efficient. They take, for example, 6 courses a semester, so that just to fulfill the requirements. They think like, you know, almost like 5 of the 6 courses are not that important. Because in the university setting, we are told by just, you know, we are learning in depth. We are taking like some course and we're learning in depth everything. We're not learning by doing or by learning on demand. But learning on demand means, you know, so maybe some of you have done some internships. And while we do internships, we learn on demand. It's a good example when we learn on demand. It means we have a concrete project. For example, we are given some concrete project, and we know that we need to finish it. But when we have a project and we are at internship, our time is limited. We don't have infinite time. So we just learn, so just enough like amount of information so that we make a progress on the project. And so in this way, I mean learning on demand and by doing. And you probably observe that when you learn by doing, your learning is more effective. You always encounter some of the things you thought you understood. I always had this, you know, like I learned the theory, I think I understood, but when I do in practice, when for example, I take a mock exam, I solve the problems, for example, in case of calculus, as Elchin has mentioned. So there is some explanation on book, there is some short example, you have read it and you see, okay, I mean, everything makes sense, everything is perfect, I understood it. But when I ask you like to do some problem, some example, you're stuck, you know. And when you're stuck, when you do some example, so you see that then you're learning. For example, you go back and read it again, you think, okay, then maybe I've missed that part. So learning by doing is more effective. So, but you shouldn't ignore the theory. And there was a thread of tweets from some guy. I don't know if you have heard about him or not. His name is Andre. He's a director of AI at Tesla. So he's a guy who is responsible for the autopilot on Tesla. So you know that in Tesla, they have the feature of autopilot. You can just sit at Tesla and it will drive by itself. He's the like head of department, which is responsible for that kind of feature in Tesla. So he shared this thing, you know, like he's very smart guy, and I value his opinion. And he have put this tweet. So he says like how to become an expert at this thing. So he says you should take concrete projects and accomplish them so in depth wise, learning on demand. And he says you shouldn't learn so bottom up. So in this again, so it means he thinks to learn effectively, you should take very concrete projects. For example, when you learn to code, you shouldn't just, for example, take like 3 courses or 4 courses and they teach you, for example, how to do these while loops and for loops. For example, you can just put a goal. I will make some, for example, and some app which will help for preparation of IELTS. Maybe just if you ask some of the questions from the reading part. I will make some app, and you have this project, and then you think, okay, so to do this, so this app, what I need? Okay, maybe I need some Python skills. After you learn this Python, okay, you've thought maybe you need some a database of the questions, and you just see, okay, maybe you need so to learn some SQL as well. Then you see you need to make some user interface, and you start learning this user interface. But if you do otherwise, you will do, like you will start learning Python, you will spend so much time on it. Then, okay, you will say, okay, let me learn SQL, let me learn this user interface. But you will do it like in sequences, and you won't know like how much Python, how much SQL you need for the project. You will learn so many unnecessary skills which you won't put into practice, and probably you will forget after some time. So he says you should take very concrete projects and just accomplish them in depth wise. And the second thing he says you should teach and summarize everything you learn in your own words. So when you do these things in your own words, when you explain some stuff in your own words, you usually understand it, because it just forces you to understand the stuff, because you cannot use the words your instructors so we're using. And I already seen it in my example. When you understand this thing when you simplify this thing, when you can explain something to a child, you really understand that, okay, you understood the stuff, because you can simplify the process and you can explain this to anyone. But if you can't simplify these things, if you can't find some examples from the real world, then it means maybe you haven't understood it, fully. And the third point, I guess it's obvious. So, I mean, I guess we already have been here. We already maybe all of you have met some of the smart guys out there, and we've seen, okay, I mean, he's so great. I want to be like him, but but focusing your efforts on comparing yourself to someone, it usually doesn't bring so value. You see, I mean, you usually become not so happy with your outcomes and results, and it's not the best thing. So to do, instead, you can have comparison with your own progress. And some of the guys made some of the comments. So basically, so they say, just on top of just learning by doing, you should also include some theory, because so when you just focus on the projects, sometimes, for example, you just address very specific parts, like your projects are very specific, and when you just do only projects, you learn very specific things. But it's always a good idea, like spend some of your time just to explore the space. For example, you did this, all your programming was in Python, but it's just sometimes a good idea just to see what are the advantages of C++. In both of the cases, for example, you need C++. For example, you always focused on drilling in petroleum engineering, but it's always a good idea just to have some understanding of the reservoir engineering. And in most of the cases, that just very slight understanding will be very useful for you in the long run. Then the third thing is to teach. I already mentioned it. So when you teach, it forces you to develop a deeper understanding. So when you teach, you usually summarize what you learned in your own words. You organize the information into coherent structure. It helps with you to learn stuff, and it makes you sure you understand the stuff. And it's always a good idea to avoid just learning by heart without understanding, because it's always, sometimes you have to do this, because sometimes you don't have to understand everything. You just need to pass exam. But if it's something very important, for you, so it's better to understand, because if you don't understand it, after some time, you will just, you won't have this information in your mind anymore. And again, we have this a quote from famous physicist, maybe you know him. So he says, if you want to master something, you just do better off if you teach it. Then automate and optimize so your kind of learning. So in this slide, I mean, you should develop some a template for learning and doing different stuff. So by that, I mean, for example, for learning language, for learning programming, for learning, for example, to play a musical instrument, there are different strategies. And I'm saying when you learn some stuff, you just make sure you have spent enough time so that when next time you do some similar thing, you already have some ready agenda, some ready plan for learning that thing. So you don't start from scratch. So I say, for example, avoid running on autopilot once so that you can run on autopilot for next times. So it means just if you spend like once your time enough to learn everything and, you know, just be very focused on some stuff, for the next times you already know everything, how everything works, and you don't just spend each time, you know, like same amount of energy on the stuff. You just first you spend all your, for example, when you drive a car, in the beginning you just look to windows, you want to focus if there is someone on the sideways or behind. After some time you already have the skills and you just, you know, you do it automatically, you don't pay attention, you just do it like without even just thinking about it. Yeah, it's just I've included this because, you know, in Tesla we have this self-driving, and it's just I was including this as an example of autopilot anyway. And there is a technique called spaced kind of repeating something. So when you learn stuff, your brain is everything, you steadily forget the stuff, and solution is to review the learned stuff as soon as possible, because we have this curve. I don't know if you have seen it or not. So it's just a curve of the typical forgetting curve for the newly learned stuff. So as you see, you know, in the beginning, the slope is very steep. It means just, you know, in just 3 days, you can forget everything you learned. You go from 100 to 0 in just 3 days. But after you make a review, you know, you just learn this, forget the stuff in 6 days. As you see, it starts from 1 and finishes at 7. So basic idea of that is just when you learn new stuff, in the beginning, you should review it immediately, maybe after a day or 2. But after some time, if you have reviewed them for some times, you can just review it maybe like once in a month, once in several months, and after some time, maybe just once in a year. But if you're learning, if something is very fresh, you'd better review it like immediately. For example, when you have a lecture in the morning, you'd better like you learn like some stuff very new, you'd better to review it like immediately, like in the evening or maybe next day. But after some time, already you have seen it like many times, you just can review it maybe once in a month, and it will be just enough for you. And the second thing is just spreading out, because we already know, like when we have exams, when we study like at last days for like a day or 2, we just forget the stuff after the exam. But if we start earlier and we just study, for example, a few hours, like a day and a week, but over spread amount of time, like over the months, we usually remember most of the stuff. And the last thing which I wanted to mention, which is very important for making your learning effectively, is how productive you are. You know, effectivity of learning depends on like how productive the person is. And as you progress through life, you know, I know that it's different for everyone. You start to feel like what works for you, and what just, you know, what it doesn't work for you, because you can always hear some advice from, you know, some of the people out there, or on the internet. You see, you know, always you get some advice, but it doesn't work for everyone. So you should find your own ways. But there are some general tips which is just applicable for everyone. In my experience, you should always like eat well, and you should have some exercise, and you should sleep well. You shouldn't avoid sleeping, because in the long run, it will affect your learning. And it's not just my opinion, it's something scientifically like have been proved over many years, and there was many experiments. Then you should find your optimal time windows, and, you know, for some of the guys, they know that they're more effective in the morning or just at some hours. You should know this stuff so that you optimize your learning. And also already we have in the chat mentioned like you should do hardest things first and manual easy task at the end. So it's also something you have to incorporate in your schedule. And again, focus intensely, avoid some unnecessary stuff, and don't try to do several things at a time. At this point, I want to take very short break. I know that session, we already have the session about an hour. I know that after an hour, you just get a bit bored and you need some very short break. And after this, I have maybe like, I will talk about like maybe 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. So if you are not against, so let's just have 5-minute break. You can stretch or you can eat something or drink and you can be back in 5 minutes. Is it okay for you?
Yes, it's okay, I think.
Perfect, perfect. So I'm back. Yeah, we can wait a minute for the guys to come back. So Rasul asking, are you going to share the presentation? Yeah, I can share the presentation. It doesn't have anything secret or I don't know. Yeah, I will share. I can send the presentation to SPE guys, SPE section guys, and maybe they can share it as a post or just with the attendees of this session. So I'm fine with any option. I know that, you know, it's very hard to just, you know, so take notes and just pay attention to everything I've mentioned. So, and that's why I made the slides, you know, informative. I've put the text on the slides so that just you have some kind of reference. You can go back and see it again. Yeah. So if everybody's fine, I want to go forward. I think 5 minutes. Maybe wait a minute. And, yeah. I've talked a lot, you know. I planned to finish a bit earlier, but yeah, I've talked a lot. Sorry for that.
No, I think you didn't talk though, so it's very useful, and it's fun to be like over 1 hour, I guess. I just wanted to mention that there were several thoughts in my brain about like learning and how I was doing that, but you were just on the spot to mention them. Like 2 of them, I will tell you that it's teaching others. That was in my mind, and then next slide, like when I thought about that, you told about that. Great. That's really helps a lot.
Thank you.
Also spaced repetition. That's yes, for sure. When you learn something, and especially nowadays, like a lot of information comes to our brain daily, like news, learnings, everything, social media, and etc. And maybe after a couple of the days, you learn something maybe technical, so you completely forget about that. So
yeah,
that happens
same, exactly
to me.
same.
And then, yes, I found this technique in one of the books. I forgot which one was that. See, but yes, that was like the point that you need to repeat it in certain sequences to memorize it much better, so that you have it. And even I think in 1 year time as well. So you need to come back and then do one more repetition, so that it's imprinted in your brain. So otherwise, it's like a random access memory, RAM. It will just like after
yeah, you just do it and then you just switch
Yeah.
off, you know, sleep and get up, you forget.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. After some time, you can't remember anything for infinite, you know. If you see the curve, you see it always it goes down, you know. If even if the slope, like, you know, it's slightly like, you know, it's like it's gentle as we go, as we review, but it goes down, you know. It still goes, maybe like after a year it will go down like almost horizontal, but still it goes down. So you still need to review, even because I've seen some of the people doing my internship. There was, you know, some experts in the field. They spent like 8 years on something, but they say, you know, they haven't used something for 2 years and they forgot, you know. They spent 8 years, but then they took break for 2 years. They still have forgot something. It's very like unfortunate, but you know, we forget stuff. You have to review. It doesn't mean you didn't understood or there is some issues with your like brain or memory. It's just, you know, so the way our memory works, we have to review stuff.
Yeah, and definitely will be much better like once you will just like go through it very quickly and then just remember it. And I mean, it will be much better next times, because it is already in your brain, but somewhere like maybe stored somewhere far away, and you just like need some quick repetition to understand what was that.
Definitely we need yeah. So yeah, I think we can go on. I understand that some of the guys may be busy and they want to just, you know, leave the session, and I want to finish and then, you know, just have this like how many questions you have. I have time, I can ask all of them. So we have the final part of presentation. You know, it's just, I can spend like entire session on this because it's very wide kind of topic. And actually I plan having this session learning like so machine learning or data science. And in this talk, I just will make very brief, like only just 2 slides, just to show the concept of applying of the workflow. But I know that he deserves separate sessions. So if you just plan to learn how to, if you just expected to hear from me like how to learn this, I don't know, data science from this session, so I'm sorry to say that I won't be explaining that in detail. It's just for showing how to put into practice the workflow I've mentioned. So you probably like have heard something about this. I just bet you probably at least heard once. So there is a chat, but it's difficult to apply it in more practice-based knowledge that demands doing instead of simply recalling facts. But it's still, for example, you learned how to code in Python. It's better for you to use Python, for example, several times a week. It's also some form of practice and repetition. So you can also read some of the facts and concepts again, but if it's something kind of practical, a music like instrument or like coding in Python, it's just the same. You don't read it, but you do it. So you code something. It's also a form of practice. Again, yeah. So yeah, in terms of data science, so I hope that most of you have heard about it. Here just I have a short definition in case you don't know. It's not very expressive, but it's just, yeah, the way it is. It's about extracting value from data by using some form of scientific methods. It's just all the companies, all the like maybe governments have some form of data. And if you use that data in some way, you extract some, even you make some plots of data and you use it to make some kind of like extract some insight from it, it's data science. You don't have to use very advanced statistical methods or deep learning, so to call it a data science. If you just have some data, if you made some plots, you saw that, for example, as people age, they just, they increase their spending, for example. You had some data, you analyzed it, you made plot, you understood that as the people age, their spending increases. It's also some form of insight. It's also data science. It doesn't need to, you don't have to do anything like advanced for it, like to call it data science. So it's relatively new field with a promising career outlook. And there are lots of applications in industry, academia, government sector, and non-profits, like everywhere. But there is also a lot of uncertainty and confusion about the scope of data science, about the roles. There are some data scientist jobs, machine learning engineers jobs, or data analyst jobs. So there are many roles, and scope even for the jobs is not very well kind of defined. And the tools the engineers use, it's also, there is some, they always ask, okay, should I be learning R or Python? Is SQL is needed, or maybe I need to learn C++. There is always some kind of talks on that. And there is also uncertainty about how much you need to know for the roles. It's just basic overview of data science. So as you know, the data is a fuel of our century. So when you put a like on Instagram or put some story, you already give some form of data to Instagram, and they use it and analyze it. And next time, you see that you posted some post with some of the picture, and in the background you have something like a Coke. You may see some some ad on Coke because you had this. They just analyze every piece of data you have. It's a fuel of 21st century, because the more data a company has, and the more they can analyze it, the more value they can bring, and the more money they can earn. And if you see the companies after COVID-19, which companies survived and which companies increase their revenue, they are the companies which have the most of the data, and the ones which use them smartly, like Facebook, Google, Amazon. So just their shares increase, they just got even better, because after pandemic, we're using this, we just spend more of our time online, and it naturally leads to a generation of more data. But there is a problem of demand and supply. It means there are less number of data scientists, and there is a demand in the market, and it pays well, and it's changing the world. And I will say it's not the future, it's even the present, like even now we see it. So I think like so this kind of graph was made like in the past, so they were saying it's the future, but it's already in the present. So anyway, Yeah, in this step, just, I will just show some very like a rough example of how can you learn data, how can you apply the workflows that I've suggested to learning data science. It's not very specific. It's not very like the best application of the workflow, but it's just as an example. So for example, a motivation stage. Your motivation for learning data science, it can be just to land a data scientist job or internship within a year. You have a specific goal, land a data scientist job or internship, and you have a specific time. And you should also know why. You should have your why. Maybe it's because of the money it's paid. Maybe it's because interesting. Maybe it's just, for some other reason. So this stage is done. Then you go on resources. You identify that you need to learn math. Like some of the, I didn't outline which like part of which sections or which type of math you need, but it's just for general reference. You need some math. You need to be able to code. ML stands for machine. So machine kind of learning. So basically, yeah, for data science, you need to be math, coding, and ML. And the resources, you can use books, courses, you can do projects. So just let's say you just thought that within a year, you will read 2 specific books, we'll take 3 courses, and we will do one project. So it's very specific. You have defined what you need to learn, and you have settled on the specific number and type of the resources. Then you plan. So you plan that I will start with the math and coding by taking 2 courses and using a book. Then I will follow up with a project. So after I finish this math and coding, I will follow up with a project while learning ML. So it's again specific. It's not maybe very specific. So you can do it even more specific, but it's still something at least specific. And you think, for example, I can spend like, I don't know, like maybe 20 hours a week. And out of that, like, so 10, I will spend on the weekends. It's again specific, that you have to spend like, for example, 5 hours on Saturday, 5 hours on Sunday, and the rest on the weekdays. So it's again at some specificity so to plan. Execution. So again, you accept some very unexpected and urgent things. You make a promise that you won't skip any weeks, because if you keep skipping weeks for some like not very urgent reasons, you will do it again and again. So, and if you miss some skips, you have to make sure, you have to try hard to to have to compensate. You haven't spent like 15 hours or 10 hours in some week, you should do your best to spend like 30 hours next week to, I don't know, just eliminate some fun stuff or some like not very important stuff, and so that you're always on the plan. And then again, you have to have your results and analyze them. For example, you say that, okay, as a result, I will post a blog post about my project or the courses I took. Because it will force you to think about the outcome of your project. It will force you to finish the project. Because if you promised yourself to write a blog post about your project, if you don't finish the project, you won't write any post. So you have to have this project or the courses. So you should get an internship, because initially your goal was to get an internship. So you have a specific kind of goal. And if you find the people like some experienced data scientists or some engineers, it will be very useful for you to just present your results, maybe just on LinkedIn. Sometimes you post something and there are some very nice people, so make some of the comments. You can write explicitly, I'm looking for feedback. And I can maybe make a promise that some of the people just by your surprise and by chance, they will make some of the comments. And if you just share, I know like sharing is hard, you may think like, maybe I haven't done anything advanced, or maybe, it's just not just very, very easy thing to do. But if you force yourself to share, you will try to make it a bit high quality, because everybody sees it and you have some pressure on it. You have to make it like so that it's like shareable. When I made these slides, I made sure that they look okay at least, because I'm going to share with the students, and I don't want like students to think, he just came and he did some stupid slides and we didn't learn anything. So you always have some, if you're sharing something, you always some kind of like responsibility you have to bear. Yeah. So I think it's almost the end of the session. Here just I will list some of the resources that I think are useful for improving your learning further. So I always like share, I try to follow some of the blogs and Twitter accounts or some of the YouTube videos of top scientists and entrepreneurs, because they are the top scientists and entrepreneurs. They are top of their field, and there is a reason why they are the top, you know, because they do something right and they are ahead of the game and they achieve something. And that's why they usually, in my experience, they usually have something to tell, and they're usually so good at explaining why they do right that others are missing. So you can always, yeah, I already watched some of the videos and read some of the like posts, and I already shared some Twitter thread like the Andres in my slide. So you can do the same. There is a website of a guy. His name is Scott Young. Maybe you know him. He made a challenge. He called it MIT kind of challenge. So he tried to finish the 4-year degree, MIT's degree in computer science in 1 year. And he shared his experience. So he was able to finish all the required number of the courses in 1 year instead of 4. And he made some videos and like very long posts about his experience, like what worked, what didn't work. And I think it's just very nice experience to just read and for yourself, because it's something everybody wish, you know, just squeeze 4 years into 1 year. You can save 3 years of your lifetime. Yeah, and there is a course on Coursera. It's just called Learning How to Learn. I took it. It's not a very useful course, I will say. I didn't learn so much out of it, but there were some important techniques. Maybe I already know some of the stuff. That's why it wasn't very useful for me. But it's a very famous course, and there were like 2 million students have taken it as of just 2017. So I haven't checked like what is the number now. I bet it's maybe about like 3 million or even more as of 2021. So those are the resources I wanted to share with you. And I also plan to have some more sessions with the SPE. It could be State Oil Academy. Sorry, if State Oil Academy. I mean, anyway. Yeah. So let me say an abbreviation. ASOIU, or it can be at Bakova Air Oil School at some other SPE section. So, but it will be at SPE. And topics, I would like to talk again about some aspects, you know, of petroleum engineering and geosciences. And now that I'm doing a PhD, I wanna just, you know, cover some aspects of doing PhD and doing research. Maybe some of you want to do PhD and research, and you may find it helpful. And also about some form of machine learning and data science, because I do it as part of my research. So I think I have some experience in all of these 3 kind of topics, and I plan to have these sessions in the future, and probably I will have my next session maybe in May. So just follow SPE pages if you are interested, and yeah, so that's it. If you have any questions, so thanks a lot for your attention. You know, I just talked around an hour and 30 minutes, so I hope you learned at least something. I hope I haven't wasted your time. Yeah, we have some questions in the chat. Let me start with those. So Ilham says we can work part-time any company as a developer. Yeah, it will be like very good application of the theory you learn at the university. So I think it's a nice plan, you know, just have some part-time work or internship, because if you don't do any internships or just jobs like for many years, you just won't see the application of the theory you learned, and you will forget it. So Rasul mentions ultra learning. Actually, I've read the review of ultra learning to make this talk. You know, I've read the review of it. I didn't have time to read it because it was expensive. You know, I couldn't find a free version of it, and I didn't honestly have time to read it. But I have read the summary of it, and there was very good reviews about this book. So if you are interested, so Rasul is mentioning ultra learning. He means this author, Scott Young. So he wrote a book on ultra learning, like effective learning. He wrote like entire book on how to learn effectively. So if you are interested, you can read that. Then Elnur says, can we also avoid so procrastination by learning how to learn? I think in terms of so procrastination, in my case, I try to understand why I do it. You know, in most of the cases, in my experience, why I do this is because some of the tasks are really hard. You know, like when I encounter something hard, you know, like when I know that when I'm going to do something hard, which is, you know, will take like so much of my energies, and I start to, you know, like to find some, you know, excuses and do something else. So I think for first step, when you want to avoid that, is to just you should try to understand why you do this. Is it because you are distracted by your phone, or you just maybe you are not interested in topic, or maybe it's just very hard thing to do, it takes your energy. You know, first thing, I think you should understand why you do this, you know, why you're not focused on the thing you are doing, but you focus on something else. So you should first understand this, but after having understood this, you can address it more effectively. So if it's something, if you are not interested in topic, maybe you shouldn't do it. If it's something hard, you should just explain to yourself that you have to do it, you know, there isn't any other way. Yeah. Any other questions?
I
Yeah,
have
Ceyhun.
Oh.
Ceyhun, sorry, I've seen his hand first. So
No,
you can go ahead.
yeah,
I will ask all the questions.
Okay, I don't have actually a question. I was just wanted to top up on some things or on some questions that was asked. If you okay with that, of course.
I'm fine.
That's
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's regarding Rasul's comment, but it is difficult to apply it to more practical, practice-based knowledge that the math's doing instead of simply recalling facts. So from my experience, when you do something practical versus to theoretical knowledge, that's a little bit different on those repetition curves. So while you're practicing something, like doing it actually, it remembers much better, and it goes to your, let's say we have like system 1 and system 2 kind of memory in our brain. And yeah, you basically remember it much better, practical things. And second, even let's say 10 years passed and etc., it's very good to write the logbooks for the jobs that you did and you think that they are really, I mean, you can refer to them in the future. So if you've done the great project or great learning, let's say if you are in the university, then take a time after you have your lessons learned and etc. and record it, put it as a logbook, like so which is says like what you did, what was the task, what you did, and then what was the outcome, like as you mentioned, like the learning parts. And then after maybe 10 years, so I have still my logbooks at the very early stage of my career back in 2010 and 11. And I can refer to those logbooks and yeah, I say, oh, okay, I did this, and that was a good piece of learning, which I can maybe use in my current job. And yeah, but that still stays in your brain. That's one piece of advice on that. And regarding procrastination, yes, there might be the hard ones, but in my case, it was the tasks that I was not interested to do. Like I was like, I mean, at work, you get the tasks, different tasks, interesting, uninteresting, hard, like not hard, but you have to do it, right? So if it's assigned to you, I mean, then for the sake of business, probably you have to do it, unless you have the justification not to do that. And yeah, I found it that there was some even more harder tasks that I was doing perfectly, but there was some very simple and maybe routine tasks that I was hated, and I was not doing that. I was procrastinating. I was spending my time like for something else. Yeah, I was like thinking and talking to my manager as well. She was giving me that feedback, and I was trying to find the ways how to make it more either automated or to improve it in such a way that it's either automatic or it's more interesting for me to do that. So you need to trick brain and kind of things. So yeah, that was like basically what I wanted to add. But thank you for that. That's really was amazing. thank you for your efforts. And I'll send you a LinkedIn connection. And hopefully you will accept that. And yeah, maybe we'll chat later. Yeah. All right. Thank you again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm always accepting, you know, I try to answer all the questions. I may not sometimes accept the requests like from Facebook or LinkedIn, honestly, because sometimes if I don't know the person I haven't interacted with, sometimes I don't accept. So just I'm honestly saying, but if you have something to ask, you can always have leave a message. So just make sure if you write a message, I will try my best to answer it, because I answer all the messages that I receive. Maybe not I accept all the friend requests or LinkedIn requests, so I don't promise to accept your request. But if you have any questions, anything to ask, so you can always write a message to my Facebook, and I promise to answer you at some point. And about the points so you've made, I can't agree more. I actually opened this slide for you. You know, you said, you know, you had your logbooks and you went back and seen again. I actually, in this slide, I'm saying something similar, you know, develop your own templates. So I was thinking similar, you know, when you have gone through something, you just have lessons learned, so that it's important you incorporate, and you have to consider those kind of lessons learned for the future. So as you said, it's always a good idea to spend some time to reflect about your learning process. And yeah, and about the things like hard things to avoid, it was just in my experience. So when I encounter something easy, just I do it. When I encounter something hard, you know, like it will take like so huge my mental energy, I sometimes, yeah, I avoid it. So it was just in my case. And in that case, I just advise you to first understand in what type of tasks you do this, in what type of tasks you don't just want to do it straight, you know, just understand, try to understand your reason first. And Rasul says, try it. Yeah, I guess at some point I've used it. Yeah. Thanks for your advice. Yeah, I will try to search from. There is also another website I can advise it. I can write it. You can find free books there as well. So TwitterPix, I guess. Yeah, you can use that as well. But don't share with some. So don't so tell that I've shared this with you. Okay. Any other questions?
I have one question. Like, first I want to mention that learning by doing, I think, really is the best way to learn something. For example, if you have some project and you know that you have to use some coding skills in that project, and you learn something then. But the question is, in case you don't have the project, in case you don't have actual application of some skills, but you understand that you have to have the skills, like for being more competitive, or like because of industry change, digitalization and other stuff, how to manage with motivation setting in this case? For example, I started to like get through the Coursera course, data analytics. I started, but I haven't finished it because of unclear view. Like, I know that I'm petroleum engineer that is going to like, I want to land internship in petroleum engineering, and in data science, I just wanted to have it on my hands, but actual application, I don't have any actual application on this. And the same thing with Python programming. I have started with it, but I haven't finished it because I don't use it.
So I think you just in most of the stuff, you can find some form of like application of it. For example, I just made this talk, for example, just, you know, in even making this talk, it's some form of application. So you can always like find even some small ways of applying your knowledge. And in the case of for data analytics, in Coursera, there are some courses with applied projects. Actually, there are some courses on called a capstone project in some of the courses. So you can do just a capstone project, and it will be an application of your project. Or you can find some very small kind of data. There are many sources of data on Kaggle. You can just search for some data, and you can do some simple analysis on that and make some plots and prepare some presentation, for example. Just say, for example, just include some introduction. So just, you know, some information about the data. Let's say it's data of sales of cars, for example. Just, first slide says, you have this data for the sales of cars. Then in the second slide, you just explain all the methods you've used. For example, you've made some scatter plots or bar plots, just do very simple analysis of what you've learned in that course, maybe making some plots, maybe just applying some statistics, like finding some mean of the data, average, some standard deviation of data, or just you do some form of regression. You can do that. Like so what you learned in the course, find some form of data. There are many sources of data. You should search on the Google and do that analysis and apply those skills on that kind of data, and just put a few slides, and just put some plots and just make that, like as I did, like some few bullet points, and just have it, because when you have it, you will spend some time, you will understand it more, and when you are next time at the interview, you can mention that, like I did a course on Coursera, I've learned some skills, and I thought, I need to put those onto practice, and just I found some data, and I applied it, and I made some presentation. If you have time, I can share with you, or just I can say it verbally. You can say, okay, it was like data for the sales of car. I did some histograms, I did some scatter plots, and the outcome of my analysis was that there was a positive kind of a correlation between the kind of the mileage of the car, and I don't know, and something, for example. So you can always do something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Ceyhun, it's okay. You can always leave. Any other questions?
Yep, I have one question. First of all, thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Muhammad. It was really beneficial. And I have kind of practical question. It will be regarded to master, application, all this stuff.
Okay.
And my point is that, as you know, for many master degrees, you need to have some research, at least for a couple months. And can you just generally explain all this stuff, all these points about research and how you have to conduct them, or main basics maybe? Because in some applications they say that you need to have some experience. Some articles, maybe research.
So I will say for the funded positions in the US specifically, and probably in Canada, because in Europe you don't have many funded master degrees, and if they are funded, they're not based on the research. So mainly universities in the US and Canada, I would guess, they're providing this scholarship based on your research experience for the master degree and PhD. So you have to have, in some of the cases you don't need even research experience. You can share your industrial experience. If you've worked for some company, if you did some internship, you can share that as well. So not for all of the universities, you need a research experience to get admission. You can, for example, have high GPA, high GRE score, and you can have some internship, and you can sell it like in a very good way that it can add to your application, and you can get admitted. I have some of my friends without any research experience. Even myself, I didn't have very solid research experience. I did some internships, and I wrote some paper out of those internships, and I just basically, it was my research experience. I didn't do any specific research at some university or a company or at some other place. So the first thing is that you don't have to have research experience. Then the second thing, if you want to have research experience, so there is some place called EA-Link. There's in education industry link. So you probably have heard about it. If you haven't, so you can ask SP Azerbaijan. There is a lab at Khazar University, and also I guess at Baku State University. So they hire students, you do the research, and they are also paid some money, and they are doing a solid piece of work. So if you can join EA-Link, you will get experience, and you will increase your kind of chances to get an admission from good schools from US and Canada.
Great, thanks a lot. I got all this stuff. Can you explain more about the paper? I mean, you say that you have some internship and you have written kind of papers like about this stuff. Just briefly, what was about and where you have published all this stuff, or just have written them on your CV maybe, or where else?
I understood. So I haven't published this kind of paper. You don't have to publish, and it's really hard to publish because it contains some of the data from a company, and it's usually you have to get like many layers and layers of access stuff, approvals, and all that. And of course, if you can make a publication, it's good for you, but you can also do without it. So I wrote a paper based on my work, and I have submitted it to my application process, and I also was sending this as an attachment in my emails to some of the advisors or professors at the universities. So just I've read about how to write a paper. You need some abstract introduction methods and all that. You just have to read about how to write a paper. You have to get some understanding what you should include to a paper and what kind of structure a paper has. After that, you just see your results, and you just make your project fit into a paper. You write some paper, you make sure it looks like okay, it looks good, and you can just send it to a professor without making any publication. You can say, okay, just I wrote this paper, I'm going to publish it. I'm going to maybe publish it. I will send it to some of the journals or conferences, but at this point I haven't published it. So but it works. So they don't expect you to have a publication from your paper. If you even write it, it's a significant advantage if you don't have it.
Great, thank you a lot. And it was really cool to have this session. Hope to see you in future sessions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you as well. Thanks for the questions. They were interesting questions. Any other questions? Yeah, thanks to you, Mahammad. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time.
So if no one have questions, if it's possible, please open your cameras to have the memory picture.
I think we all should smile.
Yeah.
So have you taken it? So you should smile more.
Yes, I have taken it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Perfect. If you don't have any questions, I will send this slide back to your inbox, like to a page. And if you want, you can share it. Or I don't know. I'm okay with it. Like I'm sharing my presentation. You can do anything you want with it. Anything else you wanted me to do, or we can end the session?
Oh, I think we can finish.
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much, Mahammad, for sharing, for your time and effort in developing our students. We are
thanks to you.
and we are grateful to you.
Perfect. Thanks to you. I really enjoyed your enjoyed your kind of team and the time you've spent. I know like we spent so much of your time, but again, you were helpful, and you were interacted, and you answered all my questions. You helped me to make this session interesting. So thanks for your efforts as well. And hopefully I will host some more sessions at your university, your section. Yeah, perfect. Have a nice day. Hopefully see you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.